A Montana residential purchase agreement is used to set the terms and conditions of a transaction involving the sale of a home. A legally binding contract between the buyer and the seller of the agreement outlines the rights and responsibilities of both parties and sets out the agreed upon terms. In this video, we'll cover how a residential purchase agreement works, the legal requirements in Montana, and how to create one. We're eForms, the biggest online database for legal documents. Stick around and we'll tell you where you can find an official residential purchase agreement specific to Montana. First, let's review how does a residential purchase agreement exactly work. A residential purchase agreement is presented to the seller of a home when a prospective buyer makes an official offer. It states how much the buyer is willing to pay for it, how it will be financed, when the offer will expire, and any contingencies that must be met, or the buyer reserves the right to terminate the contract. It may take some negotiation between the buyer and the seller to agree on all parts of the contract. Once an agreement is met, both parties sign the document, making it legally bound. This means that the agreement can only be terminated if both parties agree to it, or if a contractual contingency or a legal requirement is not met. So what are the legal requirements in Montana? Montana is known as a buyer beware state, meaning the buyer assumes complete responsibility for any issues with the property after they have purchased it. Although the seller is not legally required to make any disclosures, there are a few exceptions. If the property is sold by an agent, the agent must disclose any adverse material conditions about the house in good faith. The seller must inform the buyer about the possible presence of mold on the property. Under federal law, any residential property built before 1978 must have a disclosure about lead-based paint exposure. Now that we know more about how a residential purchase agreement works and what is legally required, here are some things that you should do to make sure the process goes soundly. Include a mortgage pre-approval letter. A mortgage pre-approval letter is a document from the bank estimating how much it is willing to lend to the buyer based on their credit history, income, debts, and assets. This helps the seller determine whether the buyer is financially credible. Offer an earnest money deposit. An earnest money deposit is a percentage of the offer and provided to the seller as a show of good faith. It is written into the residential purchase agreement and typically delivered when the agreement is signed. Use an addendum to modify or add to the agreement. An addendum is often included with a residential purchase agreement to add to or amend any terms and conditions. It can also detail a contingency which allows either party to opt out of the contract if certain terms are not met. If you're in need of an official Montana residential purchase agreement, you can get started by clicking the link here. Hit that subscribe button as well for more videos to help simplify the legal process for everything ranging from buying or selling a house to making a will.